folks, and welcome to this week's product training call. I have the pleasure of talking with you about Oxford Assurance. It's a carrier that I've used throughout my career here from time to time, and one that not very many people talk about or are aware of that we actually have. My name is Wayne from Family First Life Tri-State, Family First Life Hidden Gems, based here just outside of Tampa, Florida. And as always, it's an honor and a pleasure to bring this information to you on such a large platform. It's something that I don't think I'll ever get used to, and something that I definitely will never take lightly. So let's dig in. I guess the first thing it's your traditional final expense product covering ages 50 to 85. Level coverage, there's no graded option, so it's all or nothing from $5,000 up to $30,000. Premiums will never change. Coverage will never change. They are AM Best A rated, so definitely a solid option as far as final expense carriers are concerned. So it's a pretty simple application process. It's 18 questions, yes or no. 14 of them are knockout questions, one of those being height and weight. You'll have a quick telephone interview where they'll tell you whether or not they're approved before you leave the house, similar to another carrier that we have. So you'll walk out of the house, the client will know whether or not they have coverage or not, and you'll know whether or not you need to pivot to another option. So those 14 knockout questions that they have, those 14 knockout questions that they have on the application have a lot of similarities to some of the other carriers that we have. They have a 2-year look back in regards to being confined to a nursing home or home health care. So if they were once confined and got out over 2 years ago, they're a go. They have a 2-year look back on strokes, heart attacks, things like that. Amputation beyond 2 years, they're good to go. And diagnosed with cancer, they have a 2-year look back on that as well. Also COPD. I know sometimes we come across people that were diagnosed with COPD and are no longer being treated for it. They have a 2-year look back on that, in addition to heart surgeries, things like that, as far as treatment and diagnosis is concerned. So if they had it and are no longer being treated for it, then they're good to go as far as those things are concerned. One of the other highlights of those knockout questions is the fact that their diabetes, as long as it was not diagnosed prior to the age of 35 and they weren't treated for any diabetic complications, they're good to go. So if it was diagnosed after 30, they were on insulin or what have you, however they were treated, they're fine as long as it was diagnosed after that age. One of the other highlights of this application, even though it's yes or no, is the fact that they don't ask if that question that tripped me up a few times in regards to whether or not you have had any tests that you've not yet gotten the results for, you have any tests that have been scheduled that you haven't completed, or surgeries that have not been completed. That question is not here. So if they're having surgery next week, next month, in a couple of months, you can still get them covered with Oxford because they don't ask about it at all. One of the things that they do ask about is if you've ever been declined, if you've been declined for insurance or been graded or postponed for insurance in the last 2 years. It's one of the knockout questions. If you have, then you will not get covered. One of the questions that's not a knockout question is they want to know if you've applied for life insurance with any other companies in the last 2 years. And in that case, they're just looking for the results of that application, not necessarily whether or not you've applied. So if you have applied, then they're just going to ask what the result of it was, why they didn't take it, what happened to that, and so on and so forth. But it is not one of the knockout questions. Some of the things that Oxford does have. They have both riders or living benefits that we're accustomed to, both the terminal illness and the chronic illness rider. They also have a nursing home benefit and home health care benefit. Of course, the chronic illness is if you're unable to do 2 of 6 daily living activities for the previous 90 days, just due to a loss of functionality, or the doctor says that you're not going to be able to do them. And we all know what those 6 living benefits are, or if you require significant help doing them. Home health care or nursing home benefit is if you've been diagnosed as chronically ill and been in a nursing home for the previous 90 days, or have been put into a nursing home indefinitely. You can access or make withdrawals from your contract with no withdrawal charge. The home health care is the same thing, same stipulations. And then, of course, the terminal illness rider, where if you're diagnosed with anything that gives you less than 12 months to live, then you can access or make a withdrawal from your policy without any charge at all. One of the other things that it does have is a common carrier. There's no accidental coverage, but it does have the common carrier, which would essentially double the coverage if you're a fare paying passenger. So it gives you that added benefit as well. Otherwise, it's just straight coverage. Now, they have an e-app as well. The e-app is kind of unique in the fact that it essentially chops up the application section from the EFT section. I know the first time I did it, it was kind of complicated, but it chops it up into different pieces. So you have to go through them in sections, and you need to make sure that you complete all of them, or the application is just going to sit there. You're going to wonder why you're not getting paid. They're going to wonder why they're not getting a policy or getting covered. So you definitely want to make sure also with the app that the client is sitting in front of a computer, or that they have access to the computer via phone or email, what have you, because what's going to happen when you do the e-app, it's going to, instead of requiring a signature like some of the other electronic applications that we have, it's going to require a code. It's going to send them a code for them to essentially validate the application and provide their consent. It doesn't happen immediately in most cases, but the phone interview will tell you whether or not they're approved. You just need to make sure that they complete that. Sometimes you do it pretty early on, and by the time that you've wrapped up with whatever brochures or whatever parting words, your Rely Shield pitch and your business card, they should have that, and you can walk them through completing the application. Otherwise, you just want to make sure that they have access to whatever email address, or have a valid email address, so that you can get that information to them. If you're doing the e-app, you also have the option, instead of the phone interview, to complete that electronically, so that you don't have to actually pick up the phone. You can do it right there on the tablet and with the phone interview, and complete it that way. That gives you, again, the added security of knowing that it's been completed, and knowing whether or not they've been approved, so they know whether or not they're getting coverage. They do not, everything that they do is through draft EFT, so no debit card option, no credit card option, just routing and account number. And they are Social Security friendly, so they will structure the monthly drafts based on when they receive their Social Security, so second, third, or fourth Wednesday of the month, as opposed to choosing a specific date in regards to the payment. As far as that's concerned, there is a height and weight guide that you need to be conscious of. It's also one of the knockout questions, so you want to make sure that they fit those height and weight guidelines for sure. Otherwise, you could be sending them essentially down a rabbit hole without knowing whether or not they qualify. It's pretty straightforward. You can download it from the website. You also want to make sure that you're aware of what the riders are in your state. They are state specific, so they're not the same across the board. So you want to make sure that you download the appropriate specimen or the appropriate brochure for your specific state in regards to the coverage and what it offers. Oxford's one of those carriers that also has a drug guide for you that's available to you. So I use it as a guide per se. The ailments will usually kind of tell you what it is, but you want to make sure that there's knockout drugs where there's no exceptions, and there's other drugs where they could be used for other things. So you want to make sure that you're utilizing that as a guide so that you don't run into any surprises. Of course, if anything does come up, and I've had this happen when you're doing the phone interview, they'll ask to speak to the client again and verify what those are for and help you vet that so that you're not left guessing, trying to figure out what happened or what caused the application to come into question. So like I said, it's pretty straightforward. Knockout questions. EAP is fairly seamless. You just want to make sure that you're aware that you're completing all the sections and have the option to complete the interview also electronically as well. Questions 15 through 16 aren't knockout questions, but 15 through 18 aren't knockout questions, but they are questions that will impact the application. So be conscious of that. Make sure you have the height and weight guide and the appropriate brochure or specimen for your state in regards to the living benefits. And you shouldn't have any problems with it. It's a great option, again, for stacking, or if you're in a home where they're legitimately, and I hate to do it, I'm always, when value exceeds price, people buy, but every once in a while you come across that person that's headstrong and shopping based on price, and Oxford will definitely get you in and out with quality coverage as far as that's concerned. I hope that helps. Again, Oxford Assurance, up to $30,000, 50 to 85, solid AM Best A-rated carrier. That'll get you immediate coverage. When I say immediate, like before you leave the house, immediate coverage at a fairly low cost. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me via Facebook, Instagram, or what have you. I hope this helps, and God bless. See you on the leaderboard.